We have before us the opportunity to forge for ourselves and for future generations a new world order, a world where the rule of law, not the law of the jungle, governs the conduct of nations. When we are successful, and we will be, we have a real chance at this new world order, an order in which a credible United Nations can use its peacekeeping role to fulfill the promise and vision of the UN's founders.
All of what we can see happening in the world is part of greater plans called the Agenda 21, Agenda 2030, and Vision 2050. These are the United Nations plans to depopulate the planet from 7.5 billion down to 500 million, and then rule humanity under a communist one world government in the year 2030. This is what the globalists want. A world government will give the globalists absolute control over all of the world's resources and population.
Your Excellency, are you ready for a new world order?
I think, Becky, the main problem is, if you think of the technology is 21st century, 22nd century technology. What is happening in AI, what is happening everywhere really that will really transform and is transforming our lives and also transforming international relations. But I think the frame of thinking is still 19th century. I think this is one of the problems that we have in the international system. If you look, it's still about nationalism, it's still about state sovereignty, it's still about use of force or non-use of force. And I think this is one of the major issues as we try to bridge really what is mentally governing international relations with the 19th century mode of thinking, but at the same time with technology fast ahead of us in the curve. That I think will be a major problem.
Hundreds of gas-guzzling private jets took off this week as billionaires from all over the world jetted off to Davos, Switzerland for the ritzy and glamorous World Economic Forum, a week-long event for the ruling class to talk down to the rest of us. And it's not for everybody. It's an invite-only event. And once you do get in, they divide you by class. You get a white badge with a blue line if you're rich enough. You just get a white badge if you're married to someone important. Or if you're just a part of someone's entourage, you get an ugly green badge. you're not good enough. They keep the elites together, and they have their own little police state to make sure these people are focused on ruling the world. If you're not from CNN or the New York Times and you show up uninvited, they'll probably arrest you. And it's all headed up by a guy named Klaus Schwab, who's pretty much running a one-world government here. He kicked off the week by saying the future is theirs, not yours.
The future is not just happening. The future is built by us, by a powerful community as you here in this room. We have the means to improve the state of the world.
And the way they start is by tracking you. If you go deep in the weeds in what these people are saying at this place, they're openly scheming up some of the craziest plans you'll ever hear of, like tracking your carbon footprint.
We're developing, through technology, an ability for consumers to measure their own carbon footprint. What does that mean? That's where are they traveling? How are they traveling? What are they eating? What are they consuming on the platform? So, individual carbon footprint tracker. Stay tuned, we don't have it operational yet, but this is something that we're working on.
You heard it. The one world government wants to keep tabs on what you eat and where you go. All because John Kerry's a little mad that your cheeseburger is wiping out part of the population.
People forget, greenhouse gases are pollution. And 15 million people a year die because of the quality of the air around the world. We're dealing with a crisis here, folks. That's a crisis made by human beings.
Maybe they should take their own advice before jetting off across the world on those private jets.
We need to accept that there will be some pain in the process. The pace that we need will open up for missteps. It will open up for shortages on energy. It will create inflationary pressures, and maybe we need to start talking about that pain is actually worth it.
If you have all the money in the world, the last thing you have to worry about is inflation. It's our problem, not theirs. They're busy ruling the world. And shady George Soros says if we don't make their ideas a reality, civilization is done for.
Fighting pandemics and climate change, avoiding nuclear war, maintaining global institutions have had to take a backseat to that struggle. That's why I say our civilization may not survive.
Great Reset is not a conspiracy theory. It is something that the Davos people have put together along with the World Economic Forum, and it is running rampant through every Western capital and every Western country.
You will eat the bugs.
Eating insects could help fight world hunger.
From caterpillars and cockroaches to mealworm-covered apples.
You will live in the pot.
Putting 10 what we call pedestrians into the space. There's no privacy. As you see, there's no curtain, there's no wall.
You will wear the mask.
You fucking joking me? When I do not have to wear the mask on. No, you have big fucking punk.
You will get the vaccine. You will welcome the refugee. You will celebrate Pride Year.
We'll convert your children.
You will watch the Hollywood movies. You will celebrate diversity. You will watch the pornography.
You want some big fucking cock?
Yes.
You get changed. And so this is where you live. What do you like about it?
You will consume the product. Don't ask questions. Get excited for next product. You will not spread anti-Semitism.
This was posted by a professor at Rutgers University on his Facebook page. There is absolutely no price to pay who openly expresses such vile hate.
You will fight white people.
Look at the belly of the beast and we will gouge it!
You will put your kid on puberty blockers.
Well, you're a boy, right?
No, I'm a girl.
My son started telling me that he had a girl's brain in a boy's body. All of his authority figures telling me he's a girl.
You will send your daughter to Eurovision. You will have no privacy. You will own nothing.
Now is the historical moment, the time to shape the system.
And you will be happy.
The COVID-19 crisis has shown us that our old systems are not fit anymore for the 21st century. It has laid bare the fundamental lack of social cohesion, fairness, inclusion, and equality. In short, we need a great reset. We have a choice to remain passive, which would lead to the amplification of many of the trends we see today. Polarization, nationalism, racism, and ultimately increased social unrest and conflicts. But we have another choice. We can build a new social contract, particularly integrating the next generation. We can change our behavior to be in harmony with nature again. And we can make sure that the technologies of the fourth industrial revolution are best utilized to provide us with better lives. It is obvious that we are in the midst of the most severe crisis the world has experienced since World War II. 75 years ago, countries and people came together to shape the post-war global order, which brought us decades of peace, which brought us decades of peace, which brought us decades of peace, increased global cooperation and prosperity, Now is the historical moment, the time, not only to fight severe virus, but to shape the system for the need for the post-corona era.
Mention our names like Mrs. Merkel, even Vladimir Putin and so on. They all have been young global leaders of the World Economic Forum. What we are very proud of is that we penetrate the cabinets. We penetrate the cabinets. I would know that half of this cabinet, or even more half of this cabinet, are for our actually young global leaders of the world.
Pay insufficient attention to the frightening scenario of a comprehensive cyber attack, which would bring to a complete halt to the power supply, transportation, hospital services, our society as a whole. The COVID-19 crisis will be seen in this respect as a small disturbance in comparison to a major cyber attack. I respect China's achievements, which are tremendous. I think it's a role model for many countries. We have to define how the world should look like. The difference of this first industrial revolution is it doesn't change what you are doing. It changes you. If you take a genetic editing, it's you who are changed. And of course, this has a big impact on your identity. People assume we are just going back to the good old world which we had, and everything will be normal again. This is, let's say, fiction. It will not happen. The next crisis is already waiting for us around the corner, and it is the climate crisis. I'm confronted with so many crises simultaneously.
This is a planetary crisis.
Energy crisis, food crisis,
The climate crisis.
This is a safety crisis.
It's a global world crisis.
On top of a crisis.
the cost of living crisis.
The cost of living crisis risks undermining the fight against climate change.
Mass extinction, air pollution, undermining ecosystem functions.
Again, climate crisis, food crisis, crisis.
We are in a crisis.
A great financial crisis.
Polar crisis.
In the past few years, we've faced so many crises.
Wave after wave of crises.
But above all, it is also a justice crisis.
The other existential crisis we face, and that's the climate crisis.
Scientifically, this is not a climate crisis.
This crisis is much more than physical and environmental schisms.
We are now facing something deeper.
We have a deeply wounded spirit as a people.
And of course, we have a massive ecosystem-mediated pathway between climate change and health. It's the impact on our mental health.
Of the land and creating the droughts and melting the ice and raising the sea level.
Young people are petrified about the future, and that is having a substantial impact on their mental health.
And causing these waves of climate refugees predicted to reach 1 billion in this century.
Things like conflict.
Xenophobia and political authoritarian trends that have come.
Things like migration.
From just a few million refugees. What about 1 billion?
Things like the breakdown of society.
We would lose our capacity for self-governance on this world.
Has a dramatic impact on the mental health of those populations.
We have to act.
Crises are opportunities as well.
We can turn this crisis into actual an opportunity.
I think there's an excellent opportunity for collaborative efforts and public-private partnerships.
What does it need to master the future?
We'll see the greatest industrial transformation of our times.
To construct and to shape the future.
We develop and manufacture the technology that will be the foundation of tomorrow's economy.
The future is not state capitalism or shareholder capitalism. The future is what I call stakeholder capitalism, to have a platform where all stakeholders of global society are engaged.
We, a select group of human beings,
governments, business, civil society, the young generation,
are able to sit in a room and come together and actually talk about saving the planet.
To master the future.
I mean, it's so almost extraterrestrial to think about.
The most critical fragmentation is between those who take a constructive attitude and those into the negative, critical, and confrontational attitude.
Now, there is an interesting pattern to all this. You know how you hear about ancient tyrannical rulers who would rule over their dumb people by saying things like, yeah, if you don't do all of this slave labor and let me sleep with your wives, then God's gonna make you all perish in a deadly storm. Well, God told me, and because I'm elite, I have access to this knowledge, and you don't. So you better do as I say, or you're gonna die. Well, us peasants can't perceive what the king can, so we better do as he says. Good old fear-mongering. predictable pattern as old as time itself. But with Klaus in the World Economic Forum, it's climate change is gonna kill you, disease is gonna kill you, and a cyber attack's gonna get ya. So you better do as we say, or you're gonna die. No, you don't understand. We elites have access to knowledge that you don't. So you better listen to us or you're gonna die. Same old fun pattern of fear-mongering. They know of the scary problems and only they have the solutions. So listen up or you're gonna die.
So in the session we just attended here at the Economic Forum, I think there was a sense of relief actually in your frankness. You brought up some issues that others are reluctant to bring up.
Always. All the religious groups are against me because I'm talking about population. They want more souls. I want less on the planet.
Our next guest is already changing the world. For the 2019
paper from the journal Biosciences, co-signed by more than 11,000 scientists, asserted that planet Earth's population must be stabilized and ideally gradually reduced to question the morality of having children at all.
There's scientific consensus that the lives of children are going to be very difficult, and it does lead, I think, young people to have a legitimate question. You know, is it okay to still have children? Is it okay to still have children?
Documentarian David Attenborough described humanity as a plague upon the earth.
I can't think of a single problem that wouldn't be easier to solve if there were less people.
We are in the beginning of a mass extinction, and all you can talk about is money and fairy tales of eternal economic growth. How dare you?
First, we've got population. Now, the world today has 6.8 billion people. That's headed up to about 9 billion. Now, if we do a really great job on new healthcare, reproductive health services, we could lower that by perhaps 10 or 15%.
What if we could create a new normal where we reclaim our time, our health and well-being, and our communities?
This is the idea behind the 15-minute city, a growing movement to make our lives in cities more convenient, less stressful, and more sustainable. A 15-minute city is one where everything we need is close to home, where communities are safe and inclusive, where the air is clean.
A 15-minute city is one where it's easy to get goods and services. Fresh groceries, healthcare, and other amenities are all just a short trip away. A 15-minute city is one where everyone has a place.
A 15-minute city has affordable, accessible, and adaptable housing for households of all sizes and ages.
A 15-minute city means that you can work close to home or work remotely more often.
And we all play a role in our neighborhood. What if we don't go back to life as it was? What if we already have the power to change how we live? Together, we can reimagine and create the future we want. One that is cleaner, safer, healthier, and more inclusive.
So this plan of action is in effect, my friends. You can find this directly from the World Economic Forum's website. This 15-minute city plan aims to reorganize urban space around work, home, community, and amenities. The idea is that every need is fulfilled within a 15-minute walk or a short bike ride. So we have, control of the population, the jab, the upcoming control of currency with the central bank's digital currency, and all this is going to be tied into, your social credits and how much you can spend and when and where. Remember the words of Klaus Schwab, you will own nothing and be happy. And so now we have control of where you can and can't go. Now they're confining us to a certain radius. This 15-minute city concept is a way to ensure that urban residents, and again, this is according to the World Economic Forum, can fulfill 6 essential functions within a 15-minute walk or bike ride from wherever it is that they live. And those 6 are living, working, commerce, healthcare, education, and entertainment, which I'm sure will also be limited as well. Various cities around the world have begun to embrace this plan. For instance, Melbourne is proposing a self-contained community with 800-mile meter radius. Portland's climate action plan calls for more vibrant neighborhoods of which 90% of the residents can walk or bike to fulfill their daily needs. According to Fox Business, the World Economic Forum has called to reduce privately owned vehicles by eliminating ownership. And this is from foxbusiness.com. The World Economic Forum is looking to reduce global reliance on critical metals as nations to look part of the transition to renewable energy supplies, and one proposal is reducing ownership of private vehicles.
Feeling hungry? Would you eat a steak grown in a laboratory? Would you take a bite of a cheeseburger made by a scientist? Technology startups and scientists are placing big bets on lab-grown meats. Currently, livestock is responsible for around 15% of the global greenhouse gas emissions.
The science doesn't lie.
We could see this number rise in the coming decades. According to the World Economic Forum, the world population is expected to be close to 10 billion by 2050. We need to find a more sustainable way of satiating this rising demand. One path to the future of sustainable eating could start with lab-grown meats. Grown meats are cultured in the lab using cells which were originally derived from live animals. In theory, this cultured meat would use fewer of the planet's resources.
This machine is 3D printing steak. The goal is to create a piece of meat without killing a cow. And this Israeli startup is one of the dozens of companies racing to perfect the process.
Yuval Harari's first book got some heavy-duty endorsements.
The other book that I really enjoyed, a book by an Israeli author, Yuval Harari, called Sapiens.
Besides Obama, Bill Gates has blogged about it, and Mark Zuckerberg recommended it for his book club.
In order to collaborate on a large scale, you need to convince everybody to believe in the same story. What really the engine of history is stories. And they don't even need to be true. Some of the most powerful stories in history were fictions. Right. But you need to get everybody, or at least a significant part of the population, to believe in the same story. Otherwise, it doesn't work. Science is not really, at least this is my view as a historian, science is not really about truth, it's about power. The real aim of science as a project, as an establishment, is not truth, it's power. Particular individuals, particular scientists may be very interested in the truth, personally. But as an institution, the real aim of science is power. Those who own the data really own the future. We are reaching a point in human history that we have enough biological knowledge and we have enough computing power, and all you need in order to systematically hack millions of people is just their data. That to hack people means to know people better than they know themselves. To somebody in San Francisco, in Beijing, knows more about you than you know about yourself, about your medical condition, about your mental weaknesses, things that you did 5 years ago, 20 years ago, you completely forgot about them, they know it. Right. This is something we never faced before. Not even the KGB could do it. Right. And we are already beginning to see the emergence of such total surveillance regimes in places like Xinjiang, in places like in my own home country in Israel. We have this big laboratory of surveillance called the occupied territories, where you have 2.5 million guinea pigs of how to completely survey and control a population with very few soldiers. I mean, when you look at the numbers, it's amazing how few soldiers you need to control millions of people if you have their data. We are great, we have these wonderful high-tech companies, we make a lot of money out of it, it raises our power in the world. What can be wrong with it? This debate about privacy versus security is as old as civilization, you can say. But there is something new now. For the first time in history, it's possible to completely eliminate privacy. It was just never possible before. And it is possible now. Something fundamental has changed. When dictators always dreamt about completely eliminating privacy, monitoring everybody all the time and knowing everything you do, and not just everything you do, but even everything you think and everything you feel. Whether it's a tyrant in ancient Greece or whether it's Stalin, they always dreamt about it. They could never do it because it was technically impossible. Now it's possible. We now really have the technology to hack the human brain in a way which was previously impossible. You know, when Hitler gives a speech on the radio, he can't know what is the reaction of each and every individual in Germany and how to tailor his message, his words differently to different people. It's just technically impossible. Now it's feasible, not just feasible, it's happening. The really important thing that is being hacked is human beings. That with enough data about me and enough computing power, you can know what I personally hate and fear or fantasize about, and then you turn this against me. Now, in the past, many tyrants and governments wanted to do it, but nobody understood biology well enough. And nobody had enough computing power and data to hack millions of people. Neither the Gestapo nor the KGB could do it. But soon, at least some corporations and governments will be able to systematically hack all the people. We humans should get used to the idea that we are no longer mysterious souls. We are now hackable animals. That's what we are. Free will. I don't think that the question of, is very interesting or very central. It has been central in Western civilization because of some kind of basically theological mistake made thousands of years ago. All this story about Jesus rising from the dead and being the Son of God, this is fake news.
Wait, that's not true?
What are humans for? As far as we know, for nothing. There is no great cosmic drama, some great cosmic plan that we have a role to play in it. And we just need to discover what our role is and then play it to the best of our ability. This has been the story of all religions and ideologies and so forth, but as a scientist, the best I can say, this is not true. There is no universal drama with a role in it for Homo sapiens. Again, I think that the biggest question maybe in economics and politics of the coming decades will be what to do with all these useless people. The problem is more boredom and what to do with them and how will they find some sense of meaning in life when they are basically meaningless, worthless. My best guess at present is a combination of drugs and computer games as a solution for more. It's already happening. Under different titles, different headings, you see more and more people spending more and more time or solving their inner problems with drugs and computer games, both legal drugs and illegal drugs. If you look at Japan today, and Japan is maybe 20 years ahead of the world in everything, and you see all these new social phenomenon of people having relationships with virtual spouses. And you have people who never leave the house and just live through computers. In terms of ideas, in terms of religions, the most interesting place today in the world, in religious terms, is Silicon Valley. It's not the Middle East. This is where the new religions are being created now by people like Ray Kurzweil, and these are the religions that will take over the world. You don't have any answer in the Bible what to do when humans are no longer useful to the economy. You need completely new ideologies, completely new religions, and they are likely to emerge from Silicon Valley or from Bangalore and not from the Middle East. And they are likely to give people visions based on technology. Everything that the old religions promised happiness and justice and even eternal life, but here on earth with the help of technology and not after death with the help of some supernatural being. Authority will shift from the inner feelings of the individuals to the wisdom of these external algorithms. In places like Silicon Valley, equality is out, but immortality is in. And, once you can connect directly brains and computers, you can, the idea that your entire body must be in the same place at the same time. My hands must be connected to my body in order to function. This is true of organic hands. It's not true of bionic hands. I can sit here and do this talk show and wash dishes at home at the same time because my brain can be connected to my bionic hands anywhere. A good two-way communication system, direct communication system between brains and computers, this is kind of the watershed moment. Once you have a good two-way, nobody has any idea what happens after that. If you have a good two-way communication system directly between brains and computers, it also means you can connect several brains together to create an inter-brain net because it's the same system, the same communication system. And nobody has any idea what this means for things like identity. Who am I when I can access directly the brain of another person? Humans are now hackable animals. The whole idea that humans have, they have this soul or spirit and they have free will and nobody knows what's happening inside me. So whatever I choose, whether in the election or whether in the supermarket, this is my free will, that's over. Today, we have the technology to hack human beings on a massive scale. Everything is being digitalized. Everything is being monitored. In this time of crisis, you have to follow science. It's often said that you should never allow a good crisis to go to waste, because a crisis is an opportunity to also do good reforms that in normal times people will never agree to. But in a crisis, you see, we have no chance, so let's do it. I think maybe in a couple of decades when people look back, the thing they will remember from the COVID crisis is this is the moment when everything went digital. And if this was the moment when everything became monitored, that we agreed to be surveyed all the time, not just in authoritarian regimes, but even in democracies. And maybe most importantly at all, this was the moment when surveillance started going under the skin.
In this talk, I will talk what me and my team at Carnegie Mellon can infer from just looking at a small section of your face. In fact, we will show we can perform reliable face recognition where many current systems will simply fail. Face recognition and iris recognition have always made a huge splash in Hollywood movies such as Mission Impossible and Minority Report. Here, you see Tom Cruise entering the gap and being identified through his iris and getting personalized ads. You may think this is Hollywood science fiction, but this is actually science fact based on technology we have built here in my lab at Carnegie Mellon. This is our system and can capture someone's iris up to 12 meters away. It will detect, track the person, capture the iris, even if they're wearing glasses. We have to develop smart AI technology that can perform reliable face recognition despite these low-quality images. This is our smart AI face detector. It can actually find faces that are masked, extreme off-angle, headgear, extreme low resolution.
They're constantly monitored by facial recognition cameras that are able to instantly put a face to a name. Now the Chinese are also ranked, given a mark out of a possible 950 points. A score in the 700s is considered good, around the 500 mark is not. For now, the number is a sort of bank credit rating, keeping track of everyone's spending habits.
I think being ranked is a good thing. A society has to have rules.
It forces us to be well behaved.
It may seem scary, but it's just like that here. We're used to it, and anyway, we don't have a choice.
But in an effort to keep all of its subjects in line, Beijing is taking the system a step further in 2020. It's aggregating data gathered by banks, private companies, and the state to rate if someone's a good or bad citizen.
By using the most data possible, the so-called big data, the system will play an important role in rebuilding a moral society.
The state will go over every detail of a person's life with a fine-tooth comb. Their financial situation, spending habits, career, even behavior on social media. Criticizing the government online or displaying outward signs of wealth is a no-no. On the other hand, praising the party or giving blood increases your social credit. A good score brings benefits, but people with low scores lose rights. The cinema names and shames people considered untrustworthy, plastering their details, even their addresses, across big screens.
It's a matter of principle. Those people have to be condemned.
Those people aren't honest, so they have to pay the price.
It's only right to pay your debts. You have to blacklist those that don't.
The Supreme Court has created a blacklist for so-called bad citizens, those whose ratings have dropped to 0. On it are companies, but also 23 million people to date. Among them is this journalist Liu Hu. He got a little too close to uncovering corruption among high-profile party members. After being sued for defamation by the subject of a story he'd written, he was blacklisted. He only realized when he tried to buy a train ticket and was told he was banned from traveling.
That tells me I'm still on the blacklist.
Punished because he's been branded untrustworthy by the state.
Once you're blacklisted, you can no longer get a bank loan, start a business, buy an apartment, or even send your children to a private school.
Liu Hu is among a tiny minority of people who have dared to criticize the system, which some are calling a digital dictatorship.
I worry, because I think many people like me will be deprived of individual freedoms, and all of us will live with restrictions of one kind or another.
After our meeting, Liu Hu learned that his name had been removed from the blacklist, but he still has a long way to go if he doesn't want to languish at the bottom of the social credit hierarchy.
The Chinese model is certainly a very attractive model for quite a number of countries.
Instead of another book, I'll recommend a TV series. I think that Black Mirror is maybe the best science fiction TV show of the last year.
Black Mirror. The movie sets in a possible near-future scenario in which society is dictated by a rating system ranging from 1 to 5 stars. In this kind of society, each individual gives a rating to one another, depending on their interactions. The social and economic position that one has in this kind of society is determined by that person's overall rating. There are benefits for those with 4 and 5 overall ratings. On the other hand, those with 1 to 3 overall ratings receive little to no benefits. For this reason, inside this society, one must always act positively, or else they will get a low score.
What underpins a world order is always the financial system. I was very privileged. My father was an advisor to Nixon when they came off the gold standard in '71, and so I was brought up with a kind of inside view of how very important the financial structure is to absolutely everything else. And what we're seeing in the world today, I think, is we are on the brink of a dramatic change where we are about to, and I'll say this boldly, we're about to abandon the traditional system of money and accounting and introduce a new one. And the new one, the new accounting, is what we call blockchain. It means digital. It means having a almost perfect record of every single transaction that happens in the economy, which will give us far greater clarity over what's going on. It also raises huge dangers in terms of the balance of power between states and citizens. In my opinion, we're going to need a digital constitution of human rights if we're going to have digital money. But also, this new money will be sovereign in nature. Most people think that digital money is crypto and private, but what I see are superpowers introducing digital currency. The Chinese were the first. The US is on the brink, I think, of moving in the same direction. The Europeans have committed to that as well. And the question is, will that new system of digital money and digital accounting accommodate the competing needs of the citizens of all these locations so that every human being has a chance to have a better life. Because that's the only measure of whether a world order really serves.
It is very clear that the head of the snake is the financial system. We can argue till the end of time about who runs the world. Is it the Jesuits? Is it the reptilians? Is it the Illuminati? Is it the Freemasons? We can go on and on and on and on about this. But I don't think it is reasonable to even begin arguing about the mechanism that is used to exert this control. The mechanism is finance. The whole point of finance is to indebt, otherwise to enslave. What is a mortgage? I mean, what does that stand for? It's a death grip. So when you get a mortgage, you have a death grip held over you because you are in debt. You don't even own the house. The bank owns the house that loans you the money to buy the house, unless you're fortunate enough to have all the money to buy it outright. And even then, you can be taxed by the government, and if you fail to keep up with those taxes, the government can then take it from you. The whole system is based on a financial fraud, which effectively takes the power that we have, and it gives it to a tiny group of individuals who are running the world through the control of finance. With the infinite supply of money that we have allowed them to take, they have literally an infinite supply of money, and with that money, and from their psychopathic point of view, they have bought everything and everyone who can be bought. So those of us who cannot be bought, because we operate on a level that goes way beyond the material, we are not rewarded for such behavior, we are punished for such behavior. And the most slovenly, disgustingly criminal, pedophilia, corrupt moral individuals, those are the ones that are rewarded in this system, which is upside down. We reward the pedophiles, we reward the corrupt, we reward the liars, we reward the people with no morals at all, and usually we compromise them under this system in terms of maybe a videotape. Maybe Barack Obama is gay. Maybe we have videotape of him having sex with another man, or perhaps some other acts that may be not so popular amongst many of the electorate. Or maybe we have videos of political leaders having sex with little boys or little girls. If I was in charge of the world and I was a psychopath and completely drunk on my own power, you can bet damn sure that's what I would do. I wouldn't allow anyone in a position of power who wasn't completely compromised. When you have an infinite supply of money, you can do this. Take that supply of money away, take that power back, put it in the hands of the people, get rid of fractional reserve banking, which is an obscenity in itself. Listen to the lessons of Jesus Christ if you're a Christian who got really pissed off when he went to the temple and he saw what the money changers were doing. Let's take back control of the issuance of money, and not just on a national level. I'm happy to see in Denmark that you have your own currency, you don't have the euro, but on every country's level, they should be issuing their own currency in a transparent, non-usury based way in which it really, truly benefits the people. And in that way, we can literally free ourselves of the banking debt which is drowning us all, and we can stop scrambling for the crumbs from the table of these filthy rich psychopaths and live in a state of abundance just by changing this one thing. And I'm not just talking about abundance for Western nations who have an artificially inflated value with their currencies. We all in the West are guilty of having that reward while the rest of the world is sucking on it. Every nation in the world can use a sensible financial policy to liberate themselves, to have world-class education, infrastructure. Everything that a healthy society would require can be had in the worst, most corrupt African country, in any part of the world. We can all have that if we simply change that one thing. John F. Kennedy did that about 6 months before he was taken out. He issued United States notes as opposed to Federal Reserve notes. I can assure you the powers that be knew the power of that act, and they took him right out. So the bottom line is, if we as people understand this very simple principle, just this one thing, change this one thing, we can solve every other problem you can name. I don't care what the problem is, I can bring it back to the financial system and an infinite supply of money for a bunch of psychopaths who are running the world, as opposed to an abundant supply of money for all of us. So in that sense, I'm very optimistic. This is not rocket science. I am not the smartest guy in the room. We can all understand this. And as soon as we do, we can exercise the same power that we had, but relinquished, and we can have a future for ourselves and our children.
Through the implementation of the Federal Reserve System, the government has become vested in these bankers, and they get their money from the bankers. And so then they impose a tax on us, which makes us more slaves, makes it more difficult for us to survive. right? Giving them more profits. And now what's happened is that through the Federal Reserve System, the bankers have pretty much taken control of our government. It doesn't matter Republican and Democrat anymore, because they're both the same. Neither one of them are talking about shutting down the Federal Reserve System or stopping the payment of taxes, you know, or any of the big issues that face Americans, right? So I had a friend, Nick Rockefeller, okay, who was one of the Rockefeller family, and he, when I was running for governor in Nevada, he came to me, introduced himself to me through an attorney, and we became friends. We started talking about things, and I learned an awful lot from Mr. Rockefeller. And one of the things that we used to talk about was the ultimate plan of the banking industry, what they wanted to accomplish. And the goals of the banking industry, not just the Federal Reserve System, but the private banks in Germany and England, all over Italy, all over the world, they all work together. They're all central banks, and they're all part of the Communist Manifesto. You know, central banking is one of the major planks of the Communist Manifesto. We talk about America being a capitalistic country, but yet at the same time we have a central bank that plans everything for us, right? And the graduated income tax is another plank of the Communist Manifesto, right? So right there you have two major planks of the Communist Manifesto that have been brought in because of the Federal Reserve System, okay? So the ultimate goal that these people have in mind is the goal to create a one world government run by the banking industry, run by the bankers, and they're doing it in sections. The European currency, the euro, and the European Constitution is one part of it. Now they're trying to do it in America with the North American Union, right? And they want to create a new currency called the Amero, right? And the whole agenda is to create a one world government where everybody has an RFID chip implanted in them. All money is to be in those chips, right? There'll be no more cash.
When Elias Brodberger goes to work, he doesn't need ID, and he doesn't need money. In fact, much of what he needs to get through the day is hidden right there, just below the surface, in his hand. Embedded in his hand is a microchip that serves as his keys, his ID, and his wallet.
Yeah, it's all on chip, so I use it like to get around the building.
Buy snacks.
Yeah, exactly.
Let's buy some snacks. Exactly. So I can't open it.
No.
Okay.
So what I need to do is I need to first blip my chip, and it will log me in, and from there I get access to the fridge.
Popular TV shows like Black Mirror have imagined chips as part of a dystopian future.
Install ingrained procedure with local anesthetic and you're good to go.
In Sweden, the microchips are already here.
Such a good digital twin that you'll be able to go into the metaverse, into a virtual reality world, turn a dial, pull a switch, feel around, and actually change it in the real plant.
Absolutely, absolutely. And this is not far off. I mean, the physical and the digital worlds, they will grow together, and the result is exactly what you just said.
I wanted to ask when you all think we're going to move from this form factor to something that's on your face, glasses, and when computing's all on the edge.
All right, 50 seconds. Who wants to answer quickly?
I think it will go. It will. First of all, it will definitely happen. I was talking about 6G earlier, which is around 2030. I would say that by then, definitely the smartphone as we know it today will not anymore be the usual kind of the most common interface. Wow. Many of these things will be built directly into our bodies. Many of these things will be built directly into our bodies.
Can you imagine that in 10 years when we are sitting here, we have an implant in our brains, and I can immediately feel, because you all will have implants.
And this is giving me straight from Rockefeller himself. This is what they want to accomplish. And all money will be in your chips. And so instead of having cash, anytime you have money in your chip, they can take out whatever they want to take out whenever they want to. If they say you owe us this much money in taxes, they just deduct it out of your chip digitally.
Total control.
Total control. And if you're like me or you, and you're protesting what they're doing, they can just turn off your chip, and you have nothing. You can't buy food. You can't do anything. It's total control of the people.
And that chip's connected to a database that has your purchasing records, what you do.
Everything is in there, you know? And so they want a one world government controlled by them, everybody being chipped, all your money in those chips, and they control the chips, and they control people, and you become a slave, you become a serf of these people. That's their goal, that's their intention.
The Federal Reserve might want to fix your wallet by turning it from this into this. Though your wallet is still designed for dollar bills, Americans have been using cash to buy things less and less over the years. That's part of why the Fed is considering digitizing the US dollar, giving people money they can access on their phone and bypassing electronic payments that can be slow and costly for businesses. Some see this as a necessary upgrade to the US financial system, but others worry it could potentially upend commercial banking. Central bank digital currency, or CBDC, is exactly what it sounds like, a purely digital form of a country's money issued by its central bank that people can use just like cash. According to a January survey, 60% of central banks around the world are currently experimenting with CBDCs. It plans to release a discussion paper on the benefits and risks of a digital dollar this summer, and has said it wouldn't move forward without support from Congress. Many experts say the Fed will need to figure out a digital dollar to keep up with the pace of a rapidly changing global economy. What that looks like remains to be seen, but it could mean using this a lot less.
So David Rockefeller, who created the Trilateral Commission, which was founded in 1973, they made a statement last week about how they're using inflation to bring in a new world order. Now, one of the spokesmen said, we are now in an inflation period that will last for decades, all right? And they also said that the free market is over and the industry sets policies, all right? Now, basically what that's saying is that the barter system will be removed, all right? There will be no more barter system and all this stuff. Now with them starting the Fed Now payment plan, all right? Now Fed Now is basically Cash Apps, Venmo, all of these different types of financial institutions. You will now have to register every dollar that's being shown through the IRS, all right? So they're gonna keep tabs on you. This is gonna bring in that central banking digital currency.
I know I'd have a digital passport. I mean, you know, how convenient. Like, fair enough, and you can understand that. Wouldn't it be nice if we could pay for everything with our phones? It's like, wouldn't it be nice if the central government, who's woke-oriented and makes carbon dioxide remediation the priority, knows exactly what you spend on everything so they can target you tax-wise with precision? It's like, oh, didn't think about that. It's like, yeah, you sure didn't. Oh yes, it's highly probable. You can see these signs of this everywhere. You know, when you go through airports now, there's a lot of automated barriers. You show your passport. It's like, well, these are automated barriers. What if you can't go through them? Well, that's the situation for many people in China. It's like, what are you going to do? You're going to argue with the machine? Like, you just cannot imagine how screwed you are. The machines can lock you out. You are in such trouble. And we're speeding towards that.
We think that there are 4 characteristics of, if we were to pursue a CBDC, it would at a minimum have the following 4 characteristics. First is intermediated. Second is privacy protected. The third is identity verified. So it would not be anonymous. It would not be an anonymous bearer instrument. And fourth is transferable or interoperable.
The CBDC is that central bank will have absolute control on the rules and regulations that will determine the use of that expression of central bank liability. And also we will have the technology to enforce that.
COVID makes it accelerates the process of digitalization and automatization. It legitimizes the deployment of mass surveillance, and it makes surveillance go under your skin.
The nature of this CBDC, what is it actually going to look like? They never talk about that. Right. But I heard one European central banker tell me what it's going to look like, and it was around this large, and would be implanted under your skin.
Now we're talking about this digital dollar, you know, and yeah, it's starting to pop up. And so, I mean, the problem that we have is inflation, right? So the Federal Reserve prints
I mean, they just popped out 1.9 trillion, and already today they're talking about another 3 to 4 trillion. Like, where does that money come from? And what most people don't realize is that every time they print another dollar, the dollar in your bank is worth less. And so they're stealing the value from your dollars. And so you don't have any control over that. And even worse than that, when they print those dollars, they're stealing your value. They give them to their buddies. The people closest to the money supply get the benefits, called a quintillion effect. And so it's a completely unfair system. They're stealing your labor. They're stealing your energy, kind of enslaving you with that. And so going to a digital dollar, a central bank digital currency, is the same system, but even worse. So it still gives them all the same benefits of creating as much money as they want, enriching their buddies and themselves while stealing your value. But on top of that, it's a digital money, so it's a couple things that are kind of scary. Again, it's one, it's programmable. So when they gave out the stimulus last year, the goal was to stimulate the economy. They're hoping people would go spend that money in the economy. Most people didn't. They saved it. Right. Which is exactly what they didn't want to happen. So, and then some people put it into Robinhood and started trading it.
Yeah, that's right.
And so they can program the money. So they can say, hey, you get the money till Friday. If you don't spend the money by Friday, it comes back to us. And by the way, you can only spend it here, 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 but you can't spend it here, here, here. So they could program it. But it gets even scarier than that. It's also could be used behaviorally. So for example, Ken, you're saving way too much money. You're negative 5% interest on your money. Mark, you're not saving enough money. We're going to give you positive 5% interest rate. Oh, you're this race, you're this sex, you're this identity, whatever. You get this treatment, you get this treatment. And so through the money, they can control behavior.
You now make a point of that's an investment criteria for you.
Well, behaviors are going to have to change, and this is one thing we're asking companies. You have to force behaviors, and at BlackRock we are forcing behaviors. 54% of the incoming class are women. We added 4 more points in terms of diverse employment this year, and what we're doing internally is if you don't achieve these levels of impact, your compensation could be impacted. Okay,
we're doing the same.
And so it's just you have to force behaviors, and if you don't force behaviors, whether it's gender or race or just any way you want to say the composition of your team, you're going to be impacted.
BlackRock is an investment firm with $9 trillion under management, which is a higher GDP than every country on Earth, aside from the US and China. Therefore, it turns out BlackRock has more political and financial influence than the Federal Reserve and most governments. Sounds cool, but what's the connection with the World Economic Forum? Well, again, and it's probably nothing, but BlackRock CEO Larry Fink is also just a board member of the World Economic Forum. Well, that's super convenient, and probably just a coincidence. Is the World Economic Forum and BlackRock colluding in corporatism, where an unelected corporate elite dictates top down to the population? Well, they couldn't be doing that because they'd have to infiltrate the government, which they haven't done. Except for, in one of Joe Biden's first appointees once he took office, he named Brian Deese to be the director of National Economic Council. Brian Deese came from BlackRock, where he was a global head of sustainable investing, and now he's Biden's main advisor for economic policy. But Biden's making the policy decisions, not the unelected corporate elites at BlackRock and the World Economic Forum. Of course Biden's making all the decisions. Let's not be silly. Oh look, there's a picture of Biden in the audience at the World Economic Forum. Oh, and also Kamala Harris's chief economic advisor is Michael Pyle. He came from BlackRock, where he was a global chief economic strategist, overseeing the strategy for investing $9 trillion. Well, it looks like corporatism, but it's probably not. But if it was, it would actually be a viable strategy for BlackRock and the World Economic Forum to own everything and for you to own nothing. Oh, fun fact, BlackRock is buying up single-family homes at an alarming rate, oftentimes paying 20 to 50% above asking price, so normal people like you and I can't own the homes.
There's no doubt in my mind they're going to launch a digital dollar, right, or Fed coin. And what people need to understand is 2 things. One, it is no different than what the dollar is today. It's the same monetary policy, just in a new technology format. And all that means is now they have more controls than they had previously. Right. And the second thing is that if they launch a Fed coin, it is going to force everyone to get a digital wallet. And when they get everyone on digital wallets, but what people are not ready for is a world where the federal government actually has more power than they have now over the monetary supply. So here's 2 ideas for you. The first is China already ran this experiment. What happens when the US says, hey, we're going to give out a $1,200 stimulus check? By the way, You have 7 days to spend it. If you don't spend it, it expires. When you can actually put expiration dates on the money. When you can tell people, we're going to give you this stimulus check, but you can only spend it in certain places. All of a sudden, you hand that to millions and millions and millions of Americans. It's not so good.
The central bank digital currency is really the epitome of the Great Reset and everything that most people have been hearing about but seem to have a hard time understanding. Owning nothing and being happy. Well, with the central bank digital currency, the government is in control of your money. The government decides how you spend your money, not some PayPal thing. This is government surveillance, government monitoring. And you might be like, well, you know what? That's fine, I don't do anything wrong. That's how they want you to think. The reality of it is, if you speak against the government, as you'll see, if you say something that they might not agree with, if you say something that hurts somebody's feelings, they have the ability to freeze your bank account.
And the one final note I will make is that if you think about the benefits of digital money, there are huge potential gains. It's not just about digital forms of physical currency. You can have programmability, units of central bank currency with expiry dates. You could have, as I argue in my book, a potentially better and some people might see it, or a darker world where the government decides that units of central bank money can be used to purchase some things, but not other things that it deems less desirable, like say ammunition or drugs or pornography or something of the sort. And that is very powerful in terms of the use of a CBDC.
So this is government overreach, but more so it's government control. The Fed now, the removal of cash gives the government full control over our finances, over our decisions. This ends with people not being able to buy guns, not being able to buy ammo, not being able to leave states that they're in, not being able to leave cities, smart cities that they're stuck in, which are really prison cells.
The second thing is what happens when they start to personalize monetary policy. They say, Robert, you know what? You've got lots of assets. You've got great income. We're actually going to allow you to experience higher levels of inflation. But you know what? That person that is down the street, they're going to experience medium level of inflation. And we're going to start personalizing the level of inflation or the monetary policy that you have because we can.
So that being said, here's the story. The cabal has been planning to try to dominate the planet for many, many hundreds of years. If you really want to understand what the cabal is, it goes all the way back to Babylonian money magic and the idea of using a financial system to create a disparity between rich and poor so that a small group of isolated power elites can control who lives and who dies, who eats and who starves. The top people are not elected. The top people are the ones that run the money system.
At a 1991 closed-door meeting of fellow internationalists, billionaire and former CFR chairman David Rockefeller praised his media allies. But his confidence that his words would not leave the room was later broken.
We are grateful to the Washington Post, the New York Times, Time Magazine, and other publications whose directors have attended our meetings and restricted their promises of discretion for almost 40 years. It would have been impossible for us to develop our plan for the world if we had been subject to the bright lights of publicity. But the world is now more sophisticated and prepared to march toward a world government.
That these men aim to create a world system of financial control in private hands, able to dominate the political system of each country and the economy of the world as a whole. In short, they seek total and quiet control of the entire world.
Of these troubled times, our fifth objective, a new world order, can emerge, and today that new world is struggling to be born. A world quite different from the one we've known. A world where the rule of law supplants the rule of the jungle.
The opportunity to forge for ourselves and for future generations a new world order. A world where the rule of law, not the law of the jungle, governs the conduct of nations. When we are successful, and we will be, we have a real chance at this new world order. An order in which a credible United Nations can use its peacekeeping role to fulfill the promise and vision of the UN's founders.
What is at stake is more than one small country. It is a big idea, a new world order, where diverse nations are drawn together in common cause to achieve the universal aspirations of mankind. And that's why I wanted to speak to you today
about the new world taking shape around us, about the prospects for a new world order now within our reach. In the coming weeks, I'll be talking in some detail about the possibility of a new world order emerging after the Cold War. But today, I want to discuss another aspect of that order. You see, as the Cold War drew to an end, we saw the possibilities of a new order in which nations work together. It refers to new ways of working with other nations to deter aggression and to achieve stability. As old threats recede, new threats emerge. The quest for the new world order is in part a challenge to keep the dangers of disorder at bay. We must build on the successes of Desert Storm to give new shape and momentum to this new world order. Only when this transformation is complete will we be able to take full measure of the opportunities presented by this new and evolving world order.
Now, much has been said by the Secretary of State and others about a new world order, about a defining moment in history. I have no doubt about the potential of this moment to be defining in terms of history, but that definition can be negative as well as positive. And how negative or positive it will be will depend on what kind of new world order we really create.
Never before has a new world order had to be assembled from so many different perceptions, or on so global a scale.
The Great Seal of the United States. And that Great Seal of the United States has on it, Novus Order Seclorum, a new order for the centuries, for the ages, forever.
It's past the point of talking. We know historically that the global governance the sort of agenda to these issues is very hard to try and, with all the best intentions, it's very hard to actually activate. We're seeing that right now. We're seeing a lot of fragmentation going on in Copenhagen, a lot of different agendas pulling in different directions.
These measures are enacted. We continue to move forward with the G20 process. We will have the kind of global governance that is necessary to ensure the stability and transparency of markets in a way that gives us the benefits of a globalized market economy without the enormous risks that...
There with my people, they were bombed, and I was just targeted like them, and as elected president, official in charge of their protection, I couldn't do anything about it. But the point here is, it's not about me, it's about the idea of freedom. It's about the future of the whole region. It's about the future of Europe and a new world order.
The transatlantic partnership was never just the foundation of our security. It was the foundation of our way of life. It was forged an experience of the most bitter and anguished kind. Out of it came a new Europe, a new world order, a new consensus as to how life should and could be lived. The pieces are in flux. Soon they will settle again. Before they do, let us reorder this world around us.
I think a new world order is emerging, and with it the foundations of a new and progressive era of international cooperation. We have resolved that from today we will together manage the process of globalization to secure responsibility from all and fairness to all. And we've agreed that in doing so, we will build a more sustainable and more open and a fairer global society.
Realizes what I believe is our destiny of success in this new world order. So, in conclusion, ladies and gentlemen, a new world is emerging. It is a new world order with significantly different and radically new challenges.
Maybe some people dreamt of at that conference back in Bournemouth when it looked as if maybe history would end, that liberal democracy would triumph, that free market economics would slowly progress, and we'd have a new world order.
Tim, what do you think America's place in the new world order should be? It's always been seen as the global policeman. But as you said before, you know, it's hard to see with all these military conflicts where the winner and loser lies. What should America be doing
I think
globally?
The global policeman should be the United Nations.
What sort of a financial deal should Obama be seeking to strike when he travels to China next month?
No, I think this would be the time, because you really need to bring China into the creation of a new world order, financial world order.
What do you think the most important thing is for Barack Obama? Obviously, you're here to talk about the anniversary for U.S.-China diplomatic relations, but if you had to say this is going to be the country or the conflict or the place that will define the Obama administration, what would it be?
The president-elect is coming into office at a moment when there are upheavals in many parts of the world simultaneously. You have India, Pakistan, you have the jihadist movement. So he can't really say there is one problem, that it's the most important one. But he can give a new impetus to American foreign policy, partly because the reception of him is so extraordinary around the world. I think his task will be to develop an overall strategy for America in this period when really a new world order can be created. It's a great opportunity. It isn't just a crisis. There's a need for a new world order, but it has different characteristics in different parts of the world.
The affirmative task we have now is to actually create a new world order, because the global order is changing again. And the institutions and rules that worked so well in the post-World War II era for decades, they need to be strengthened.
So let's leave them something to think about as they go home. Let them go home and say, Mr. Soros said, here are 3 things we can do, simply. 1,
well, deal with the mortgage problem, reduce foreclosures, recapitalize the banks, and then work on a better world order where we work together to resolve problems that confront humanity, like global warming.
At its core, Agenda 21 is about control. Control over land, natural resources, and entire populations. It seeks to control the air by regulation of carbon emissions, the ground by sustainable development, and the sea through environmental regulations. Officially stated, Agenda 21 is a comprehensive plan of action to be taken globally, nationally, and locally by organizations of the United Nations system, governments, and major groups in every area in which human impacts on the environment. Because being human will always have an impact on the environment, Agenda 21 paves the way for extraordinary UN control. When you boil it down, there are 9 basic tenets of Agenda 21. Move citizens off private land and into urban housing. Create vast wilderness spaces inhabited by large carnivores. Eliminate cars and create walkable cities. Support chosen private businesses with public funds for sustainable development. Make policy decisions that favor the greater good over individuals. Drastically reduce the use of power, water, and anything else that creates carbon pollution. Use bureaucracies to make sweeping decisions outside of democratic processes. Increase taxes, fees, and regulations. And finally, implement policies meant to incentivize a reduced population. Controlling our every impact on the environment means controlling every aspect of our lives. What we eat, how we travel, where we live, how we live. But no is still an option.
Realize, folks, these people are living and serving an entirely different reality than you. It does not matter if you don't believe this stuff, they do. And they will continue their plan to dominate the planet, keep it satanic, and remain in full control if we do not wake up. That's our responsibility.
Guided by your own critical thinking and what your heart and soul knows is right. And choose bravery over obedience. Obedience or bravery? Outsource your perspectives or do your own critical thinking? We are in the process of either the Great Reset or the Great Awakening, and the choice isn't Klaus Schwab's. The choice is yours.
1984 is, I believe, a quite terrifying masterpiece. So terrifying, in fact, I don't think I should like to read another like it.
I am not absolutely dissatisfied with it. I think it is a good idea,
But the execution would have been better if I had not been under the influence of TB when I wrote it.
You once claimed that you have an ability to face unpleasant facts. Is that what you've demonstrated in 1984 by drawing an accurate portrait of the future?
I think that allowing for the book being, after all, a parody, something like 1984 could actually happen. This is the direction the world is going in at the present time. In our world, there will be no emotions except fear, rage, triumph, and self-abasement. The sex instinct will be eradicated. There will be no loyalty except loyalty to the party. But always there will be the intoxication of power. Always, at every moment, there will be the thrill of victory, the sensation of trampling on an enemy who is helpless. If you want a picture of the future, imagine a boot stamping on a human face forever. The moral to be drawn from this dangerous nightmare situation is a simple one. Don't let it happen. It depends on you.
We're in the endgame now.
That Great Seal of the United States has on it, Novus Order Seclorum, a new order for the centuries, for the ages, forever.